was a time when I needed to understand every single thing that happened to me. I wanted reasons, patterns, proof that life was still fair. I thought if I could just keep everything organized and predictable, then maybe I could protect myself from being hurt again. But control is often born from fear. The fear of losing, the fear of being disappointed, the fear that if I don't hold everything together, everything will fall apart. I have learned that my need to control things wasn't about strength, it was about survival. Somewhere deep inside, I was still trying to rewrite the past, to make sure I would never feel that same pain again. But fear disguised itself as responsibility. It made me believe that I was being careful, when in truth, I was being consumed. It is written, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind." 2 Timothy 1:7. When I read those words, I realized something powerful. Fear doesn't come from God, peace does. And if fear doesn't come from Him, then I don't have to keep it. I can let it go, because fear builds walls, while faith builds bridges. Fear makes you believe that you're alone in the battle, but faith reminds you that you never fight alone. I remember a season when everything seemed fragile. My plans, my relationships, even my own sense of self. I held on tighter, trying to predict the next storm. But the tighter I held, the more exhausted I became. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was only suffocating the peace that God was trying to give me. Control doesn't prevent pain, it prevents healing. Because healing begins the moment I stop resisting what is and start trusting who is. I used to wake up every morning carrying invisible weights, trying to manage what I couldn't manage, trying to fix what wasn't mine to fix. And every night, I'd wonder why I felt so empty. Then one day, in the middle of my own frustration, I heard a quiet whisper inside my heart. "You don't have to do this anymore." That whisper wasn't logic, it was love. It was God reminding me that His hands are steadier than mine, that I can stop gripping the steering wheel of life, because He was never asleep in the passenger seat. Letting go doesn't mean nothing matters. It means I finally believe that I don't have to hold the universe together for it to work. It is written, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. Those words used to sound poetic. Now they sound like oxygen. Be still, not inactive, but at peace. Know that I am God. Not me, not my fears, not my plans, but Him. The truth is, every time I release something into His hands, He replaces it with peace. Every surrender opens a door. Every breath becomes lighter. And the storm that once terrified me becomes the place where I learn to rest. I used to think that trusting God meant waiting for everything to make sense. That faith would feel easy once I saw the full picture. But the truth is, I rarely see it. Most days, I walk with fragments. Tiny glimpses of purpose, small flashes of light between the shadows. And maybe that's exactly how God designed it, because if I could see everything, I wouldn't need to trust. Sometimes I look at my life and realize how many times God has saved me from things I was begging Him to let me have. The job I thought would make me happy. The relationship I prayed would last. The plan I insisted was perfect. When those doors closed, I called it disappointment. But now, when I look back, I call it protection. It is written, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. I used to read that verse and imagine a smooth road, a straight path without storms. But the more I live, the more I realize. Prosperity in God's language is not about things, it's about peace. Hope is not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of purpose. And the future He promises is not always what I planned, but it is always better. Trusting God doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means looking at it and saying, "Even here, even now, I believe you're working." It means believing that the author still holds the pen, even when the page looks blank. I've learned that faith grows stronger in silence than in certainty, because it's in the silence that I actually learn to listen. There were moments when I stood on the edge of change, afraid to take the next step, because I didn't know where it would lead. But every time I dared to move, even trembling, I discovered that grace was already waiting for me on the other side. It's as if God was saying, "You take the step, and I'll make the ground appear." I don't need to understand the path to walk it. I just need to know who walks beside me. And the more I trust those hands that hold the future, the lighter my heart becomes. Because I realize I am not the architect of destiny. I am the traveler guided by love. It is written, "The Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your rear guard." Isaiah 52:12. That verse has become a promise I carry in my chest. I don't have to fear what's ahead, because He's already there. I don't have to regret what's behind, because He's still guarding it. The same hands that shape the stars are shaping my story. So now, when I face uncertainty, I whisper to myself, "You don't have to see the road to trust the guide." And in that whisper, peace begins to rise again. Because I may not know the way, but I know the one who does. For years, I lived under the illusion that control would keep me safe, that if I could just organize, plan, anticipate, I could somehow protect myself from pain. But control is a beautiful liar. It promises peace, but delivers exhaustion. It tells you you're strong, while quietly draining your soul. I used to wake up every morning thinking, if I don't manage everything perfectly today, something will fall apart. But slowly, I began to see that the more I tried to control life, the less I lived it. I was surviving my days instead of inhabiting them. Control is like holding your breath. You can only do it for so long before your spirit gasps for air. It is written, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life?" Matthew 6:27. When I finally read that verse with an honest heart, it hit me. All my worry, all my planning, all my overthinking had never added peace to my life. It had only stolen it. God wasn't asking me to stop caring. He was asking me to stop carrying what He never asked me to hold. Surrender, I discovered, is not giving up. It's giving over. It's not resignation. It's release. It's lifting my hands, not in defeat, but in trust. It's saying, "Lord, this is too heavy for me, but never too heavy for you." And when I do that, something sacred happens. The weight shifts. There was a day when I finally said those words aloud. I remember sitting alone, eyes closed, tears running freely, whispering, "God, I don't want to fight you anymore." I didn't feel lightning or thunder. I just felt light, like someone had quietly untied a rope around my heart. It is written, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. That promise isn't poetic, it's practical. The rest of God isn't a nap, it's a way of living. It's walking through the same world, but without the weight of trying to control it. Now I understand. The freedom of surrender is not about losing power, it's about finding peace. Because when I release control, I'm not stepping into chaos, I'm stepping into trust. The world may still move fast, but my soul learns to move slowly. And in that slowness, I hear Him clearer, I feel lighter, I finally breathe again. There came a season in my life when love itself became my battlefield. I wanted to help, to heal, to fix, to save. I poured myself out for people I loved, believing that if I just tried harder, prayed longer, stayed present enough, things would change. But sometimes, the more I held on, the more I bled. I've learned that love doesn't always mean holding tight. Sometimes love means letting go. Not because I've stopped caring, but because I've finally learned who the real Savior is. I can love deeply, I can pray sincerely, but I cannot carry someone else's destiny. Only God can. It is written, Cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. That verse doesn't just speak about my own worries. It speaks about the people I worry for. There are souls I've tried to carry on my back, hearts I've tried to mend with my own hands. But healing is not my job. I can be a vessel of love, but never the source of salvation. Letting go in relationships doesn't mean abandoning people. It means trusting God enough to take care of them when I no longer can. It means saying, Lord, I place this person in your hands because your hands are safer than mine. I remember the first time I prayed that prayer. My voice shook. My heart felt like it was breaking. But in that surrender, something holy happened. I felt peace, not because the situation changed, but because the burden shifted. I realized that love doesn't control, it releases. It prays more than it pleads. It trusts more than it clings. It is written, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. Guarding my heart doesn't mean closing it. It means learning when to stop fighting for what God is asking me to release. Sometimes the most faithful act of love is distance. Sometimes silence is protection. And sometimes goodbye is grace. Now, when I love people, I try to love them with open hands, not gripping, just holding gently. I pray for them more than I pursue them. I bless them, even when they walk away. Because love that depends on control is not love. It's fear dressed up in devotion. True love gives space for God to move. It lets him write the story instead of forcing an ending. And in that surrender, love becomes lighter, purer, freer, because anything I place in God's hands is never lost. It's transformed. It is written, whoever sows with tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126:5. I've cried those tears. I've sown them in the soil of trust. And today, I can say with certainty that every relationship I've surrendered to God has become a lesson, a blessing, or a preparation. None were wasted. All were sacred. So now I love, but I no longer grip. I care, but I no longer control. I walk away when God whispers, enough, and I trust that his love will reach further than mine ever could. There was a season when fear became my quiet shadow. It followed me everywhere I went. I feared losing what I loved, losing what I built, losing what made me feel safe. The thought of letting go terrified me. I told myself I was protecting what mattered, but in truth, I was protecting my fear. Fear is subtle. It disguises itself as care, as responsibility, as love. But underneath, it's the voice that whispers, if you stop holding on, everything will collapse. And yet, every time I tried to hold tighter, the peace inside me slipped further away. It is written, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Isaiah 41:10. I remember the day that verse stopped being just words on a page. I was sitting alone, heart racing, thoughts running wild, convinced that everything was falling apart. I whispered, God, I can't do this anymore. And in that moment, something within me stilled. Not because everything changed, but because I finally stopped fighting. I realized I was not alone in the chaos. Fear loses its power when love enters the room. Because love doesn't control, it comforts. Love doesn't demand, it anchors. The more I open my heart to God's love, the less space fear has to live in me. It is written, perfect love casts out fear. 1 John 4:18. I used to think peace came from eliminating fear. Now I know it comes from replacing fear with presence. The presence of God, the quiet awareness that He is here, in the breath I take, in the silence that calms my racing thoughts. So I started to breathe differently, slowly, intentionally, almost like prayer. I breathe in His peace. I breathe out my panic. I breathe in His promises. I breathe out my control. And every breath reminds me, I'm still here, still held, still loved. The truth is, life will always carry moments of uncertainty, but I don't have to live enslaved to the fear of losing. Because what is rooted in God cannot be lost. What He holds cannot be taken. And what He allows to change is always part of a greater restoration. So now, when fear whispers that I'm losing everything, I answer softly, maybe I'm not losing. Maybe I'm being renewed. It is written, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. Every time I say those words, I feel my heart slow down. The fear doesn't vanish instantly, but it loses its throne. I no longer serve fear. I breathe with faith, because every breath of trust is proof that I'm still alive, still chosen, still becoming. There is a prayer I used to recite without really understanding it. Thy will be done. I said it out of habit, like a polite phrase to end a conversation with God. But one day, those 4 words began to tremble inside me, because to truly say them is to let go of my script. When I whisper, thy will be done, I'm telling God, even if it's not what I planned, even if it hurts, even if it looks nothing like what I imagined, I still trust you. And that kind of trust doesn't come from theory. It comes from breaking. I think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, his face pressed to the ground, sweat turning to blood, fear mixing with obedience. Even the Son of God trembled before surrender. He prayed, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. Matthew 26:39. That moment changed how I see surrender. Jesus didn't run away from pain. He placed it back in the Father's hands. He didn't suppress his fear. He submitted it. He showed me that surrender is not the absence of struggle. It's choosing trust right in the middle of it. I used to think surrender would make me smaller, weaker, invisible. But every time I lay down what I can't control, I discover the opposite. I become lighter, freer, closer. The weight I carried doesn't disappear into nothing. It falls into grace. It is written, commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. Psalm 37:5. I love that phrase. He will act. Not me, not my anxiety, not my timelines. Him. My part is the surrender. His part is the miracle. And somehow every time I've let go, something holy has begun to unfold, slowly, quietly, beautifully. There have been nights when I've fallen to my knees, saying nothing but those same words. Thy will be done. Sometimes through tears, sometimes through silence, sometimes through nothing but breath. And every single time, heaven answered with peace. Now I understand. Those words are not a closing line to prayer. They are the beginning of transformation. Because when I finally stop wrestling for control, I make room for resurrection. The cup may not pass, but grace will. So tonight, once more, I close my eyes and whisper, Thy will be done. And in that whisper, my heart exhales. I didn't know how to rest. My body would stop, but my mind never did. Even in silence, I carried noise. I filled every space with plans, worries, and the next, what if? Rest felt impossible, like something for later, for when life finally calmed down. But life never truly calms down. Only the heart does. There came a moment when exhaustion no longer felt physical. It was spiritual. I realized I wasn't just tired. I was tired of being tired. And in that fatigue, I finally heard the voice I'd been drowning out for years. A gentle whisper, be still. It is written, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Those words used to sound poetic. Now they sound like medicine. Be still doesn't mean do nothing. It means stop fighting what's already in my hands. Stillness is not inactivity, it's intimacy. It's allowing God to hold what I can't fix. When I first tried to rest, it felt unnatural. I sat in silence, and everything inside me screamed to move, to check, to plan, to scroll. I was addicted to motion because motion made me feel in control. But slowly, the silence began to work on me. The noise faded, my breathing deepened, my thoughts slowed, and beneath it all, I found something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Rest, I've learned, is not a luxury, it's a commandment. God Himself rested, not because He was weak, but to show us that even perfection pauses. The rhythm of creation is not endless doing, it's sacred breathing. It is written, He restores my soul, He leads me beside still waters. Psalm 23, 2-3. I used to think rest was about stopping, but now I see it's about returning to who I am when I'm not performing, returning to the presence of the one who doesn't measure me by productivity, returning to the quiet waters where my soul remembers it is loved. Sometimes I rest by sitting in silence, sometimes by watching the sunset until the sky turns gold, sometimes by simply breathing His name until my heart slows down. And every time I feel Him near, gentle, patient, waiting. Stillness has become my sanctuary. It's the place where the storm ends, not because the wind stops blowing, but because I stop running. Now I understand. Peace is not something I chase, it's something I allow. And every time I choose rest over rush, I'm not being lazy, I'm being healed. There came a day when I realized how heavy I had become, not in body, but in spirit. Every thought was a weight, every worry, a stone in my chest. I was carrying things I was never meant to carry. People, outcomes, timelines, guilt, expectations, and I wondered why joy felt so far away. Then God began to teach me what it means to live light, to walk through the same world, but without dragging it behind me, to move through life not with clenched fists, but with open hands. It is written, My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. Those words changed me. I used to think being faithful meant carrying everything. But true faith is not about carrying. It's about releasing. It's about trusting that whatever belongs to me will remain, and whatever leaves was never mine to hold. Living light doesn't mean living careless. It means living conscious, aware of what truly matters and free from what doesn't. It's learning to let love be love without turning it into control. It's letting plans unfold without forcing doors open that God has closed. Sometimes I still feel the old weight trying to return. The voice that says, you should be doing more. You should be fixing this. You should be farther by now. But then I breathe and remember, I am not the source. I am the vessel. The more I let go, the more His grace flows through me. It is written, the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him and He helps me. Psalm 28:7. Trust makes me lighter. Gratitude makes me lighter. Love makes me lighter. Because every time I choose faith over control, peace rushes in like fresh air through an open window. Now, when something unexpected happens, I no longer panic. I pause. I ask, God, what are you showing me here? Sometimes it's a lesson. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's simply a reminder that I'm not in charge, and that's okay. Living light is not about escaping responsibility. It's about releasing what was never mine. It's choosing to live like the birds Jesus spoke of, not anxious about tomorrow because my Father already knows. It's understanding that the lighter I travel, the further I can go. So I keep walking, step by step, heart unburdened, soul breathing again. Because the less I hold, the more I can receive. There was a morning when I woke up and realized I wasn't fighting anymore. The thoughts that once ran wild were quiet. The weight I used to feel on my chest had softened. The questions were still there, but they no longer ruled me. Something inside had shifted. I had stopped chasing control and started living in peace. Letting go didn't change the world around me. It changed the world within me. The same situations existed, the same people, the same unknowns, but my heart had found its rhythm again. I began to see that peace isn't what happens when everything is calm. Peace is what happens when I stop resisting the storm. It is written, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." Isaiah 26:3. Perfect peace, not because life is perfect, but because trust is present. I used to think peace was a feeling to be achieved. Now I know it's a person to be known. When I keep my eyes on Him, the waves lose their power. When I rest in His will, the future stops frightening me. I walk slower now. I listen more. I rush less. I no longer see surrender as losing, but as living. Every time I release what I cannot control, I make room for miracles I could never have planned. Every time I breathe instead of panic, I discover that God was already there, waiting in the quiet. It is written, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14:14. That verse has become my anchor. I don't need to push the river. I just need to flow with it. I don't need to fix every detail. I just need to stay faithful. And somehow, everything begins to align, not perfectly, but purposefully. So I keep choosing peace, not once, but every day. When fear knocks, I breathe. When doubt whispers, I pray. When control tempts me again, I open my hands and say, "Lord, it's yours." And in that simple act, I find freedom again. The kind of freedom that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on trust. The kind of peace that doesn't need proof, only presence. Now, as I stand in this stillness, I know I haven't lost anything by letting go. I've gained everything that truly matters. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Let everything you've been holding finally rest. The world will keep spinning, but right now, this moment belongs to peace. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to prove anything. God is here, right here, in the silence between your thoughts, in the breath that still rises and falls inside your chest. Father, I bring you everything I've tried to control, every worry I've kept hidden, every part of me that's afraid to let go. I give you my fears, my regrets, my expectations, my unanswered prayers. I lay them down, one by one, because I'm finally tired of carrying what was never mine. Teach me, Lord, the beauty of surrender. Remind me that letting go isn't failure, it's faith. Show me how to rest when my mind runs wild, how to trust when I don't understand, how to breathe when life feels too heavy. You said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So here I am, God, weary but willing. I place my heart in your hands, knowing those hands never drop what they hold. I choose peace today, not the peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but the peace that flows from perfect trust. I choose to walk light. I choose to release control and receive grace. And even when the storm rises again, I will remember who calms the sea. Thank you, Lord, for teaching me that I am safe when I surrender, that the unknown is not my enemy, but the doorway to faith. Thank you for fighting the battles I can't see, for restoring what I thought was gone, for carrying me when I couldn't carry myself. So now, I exhale the old and inhale the new. I let go. I rest. I trust. And I know I am held. Amen.